Hey everybody, welcome to the Creative Conversations podcast of David and Donna. I'm David.
I'm Donna.
I forgot the name of our show for half a second.
I was like, maybe we should start again? Nah, we'll just go with
Well,
it.
on the way over here, I was actually listening to my old podcast, Homeroom Radio. So I was about to say, welcome to Homeroom Radio Podcast. So that's why I stopped for a second. I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't that one.
Podcast on the brain. You went and did another podcast last week.
Oh, that's right. I forgot I would even talk about that. That's right, guys. I was on the Science Fictionary podcast. I'll leave a link to that below. The Science Fictionary is a website run by a friend of mine. It's all about science fiction, as you could have guessed. They do articles about comic book movies, mostly Star Wars. That's their big thing, is Star Wars. And they have a Star Wars podcast they've been doing for a long time that I was on, and I like Star Wars, but I'm not really a big Star Wars guy, although I have seen The Mandalorian on Disney Plus, and it is amazing. But they started doing a podcast called the Science Fictionary Podcast, which was just more about everything going on in the nerdy culture, talking about The Witcher, talking about Star Trek, talking about Marvel comic books, the Joker movie, all that kind of stuff, and I was very happy to be on it. That was a lot of fun. It's about an hour of it's nerds talking about nerd stuff. So if you're someone who would enjoy that, please go check it out. I'll leave a link in the description.
Proud nerd. Yes.
Proud nerd.
Yes.
Yes, that was a fun being on that podcast, but I do have to say I missed our chemistry, and I don't mean to offend who I was on the show with. I love those guys, Andrew, Marisha, and actually my dad was on there with us. My dad joined us. I love those guys, but sometimes I don't feel the clicking of the sense of humor that would be about half.
Well, the reason that I ask you to do the podcast with me is just every time we've ever talked, it just absolutely goes in a direction that I find interesting, and it still amazes me how much we get in sync. Like, we'll talk for 2 minutes and we're just like on the same page at the same time. It's all the time. It really is. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. It's
amazing that I really don't have to edit these podcasts because we don't have these long, awkward silences.
Right.
But you know what did have long, awkward silences?
Yeah.
So the play.
Transition. Yes, so we talked all about the play last week that I had been in the rehearsal process with, and it was a grueling...
4-hour rehearsal days.
Not so much the time as just the lack of preparation and me seeing what could be so good and then watching it in rehearsal.
I don't think I've ever seen you so stressed out.
I was not happy.
And you're not a person who gets stressed out.
I don't.
At all. And that's why I was
you also didn't never really see me. We didn't have this kind of relationship when I was your director.
Right.
You didn't get to see me come home and just be like, oh my gosh, that was a bad rehearsal.
Yeah.
And I mean, in class, I'm sure you probably heard me say things like, if you don't start doing what you need to do, the audience is going to be bored. And one of my biggest phrases I use every time I direct any play is, well, the audience is going to come and they're your friends and your parents and they're going to look at the play no matter what it is on stage, and they'll be nice and they'll go, oh, that's so nice.
That's adorable.
So cute. Y'all did a little play. How nice.
It's like when you call a baby precious.
Well, I do call babies precious, and I mean that. So that's not quite the same thing.
Well, I've heard that's what people do. Whenever the baby's ugly, they call it precious.
Oh, well, I don't. I like the word precious, but that is completely off topic. So anyway, to get back to what I was saying, so what I tell my students when we're in rehearsal is I want people to watch the show, and when it's over, go, oh, wow. That was amazing. I cannot believe that you did such a good job. I mean, I came in here watching, expecting a bunch of high school kids walking around and, y'all just blew it away. It was so good. And I do normally get that response. And I'll come back to a comment about that in a minute. Mm-hmm. But I use that. I'm sure you heard me say that. Probably every time you were in any play I directed.
Yes,
I said that
every
for every
time,
show.
Yeah.
So that's how I let my students know that they need to find a way to do what they need to do. They don't see me come home and panic and be very upset and down because I see what needed to happen and it hadn't happened yet, and it still hadn't happened yet, and there's 2 more days to the play now and it still hadn't happened yet. And I told my students this time the same basic, mantra that I say, but I'm like, you have a lot to do. You have a lot of stuff to pull out of the hat because it's not happening right now. Right. And I mean,
in this play, there were a lot of scenes with a lot of people on stage at the same time. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of scenes with lots of movement and choreography and lots of physical comedy, which is like I think we've done that before, but I don't think any of the plays we've done before have had this much that often.
Well,
of those
Pelican
kinds of
had all
scenes.
the stage combat, so that was a difference. We learned that it's like
right.
learning dances, learning all the stage combat. So that was the most similar thing we'd done. But this one, it was just, I know David was sitting next to me last night when we were watching the play, and there's a scene where we have a birthday party, and they have to throw a ball all over the stage. And I said, look, y'all, we do not need that ball bouncing into the audience. And there was one point David went, because he really thought they were going to miss it. It was going to bounce off. But they saved it. They managed it.
It was coming, I was like,
But anyway, I've had many moments like you saw in rehearsal process, because I did at one point when I was a young teacher, when it was my second play actually, I would come home and squall. I would cry my head off, and Danny would be like, Donna, if it's that bad, just cancel the play. Like, I can't cancel it. Everybody's got to come see it. And I was beside myself. I was hysterical. I was so upset that people weren't doing what they needed to do, because I could see how good it would be and what they can do and their potential. And that particular play, the second one I directed, it was horrible on stage. And mainly because one of our leads, it was a dual lead show, dropped out like a week before. And I guess I should have seen that coming. I don't know. But we had to replace her, which meant rearranging the rest of the cast. And they were just bad juju through the whole rehearsal process. There was just, things were just prickly, and we never fixed it. It was just, it was just not good. And I'll come back to what I was saying earlier. I think for that particular play, it was almost impossible for me to see in my mind a positive outcome. I just couldn't see it, because everything was so harsh. And then we had the dropout and the replace, and the other lead was just constantly telling the other girl her lines on stage just to try to get through it. And I was devastated, like to the point that I really just, it was like the world ending for me. And people kept telling me things like, it's just a high school play. But for me, I mean, that was what I was doing. It was my project. It was my passion. And it was just so much more to me than just a high school play. And I don't know if I thought it reflected bad on me because they didn't do it. I don't know what I thought. But I do know that I had a huge overreaction to the fact that they didn't pull out what I expected on stage. So the point is, even though this rehearsal process had its really, really, really rough moments, I still, in my heart and in my mind, knew from the moment that I wrote the script that it could just be phenomenal on stage. I could see it. I could see it in my mind. I could see the kids doing well. I could see the audience having the reaction that I just described, like, wow, that was amazing. And I always held that. I don't, even when I was upset and telling the kids, look, you're not doing what you need to do. You're just not. You know, if you don't know your lines, we can't fix it. You've got to fix it. You've got to find a way to fix it. Because once you do, I can help you even bring it bigger. I can do that for you. You just have to give me what to work with. But I never lost my vision of it. And so I'm sitting there watching it unfold on stage thinking, yes, this is what I had in my head.
Hitting me. Every time something went perfectly, you hit me. Yes.
David sits next to me knowing he's going to be my human punching bag.
That's okay, though.
I never hurt you. It's more like a tap or grab the knee or elbow to elbow. Like, did you see that? Did you see that? Just so excited just to share the moment. I really don't know how I would ever sit and watch a play without you sitting next to me at this point.
It's like you can't go back.
It's your spot. That's where you have to sit.
It's so, and it's funny because at the start of every play, I never sit down there initially. I always wait for Donna to be like, "This is your seat." I'm still hope maybe next time I would have finally have learned I get to sit there. It's fine.
It's your spot.
But also because I bring friends and I don't want to. But then you're like, no, they can sit up front next to you. So then I'm sitting with my friends and I really enjoyed the play. I went to a few rehearsals and I saw the struggles you were talking about. But like you, I read the script whenever you first wrote it, and I saw the vision too. And just like you, during rehearsal, I never lost sight of this can be really, really good. And that's something we had to keep telling ourselves. And I had to keep telling you, I'm like, this could be really, really good. You know, this is good. You would call me like, it's gonna be really good. It's okay. I told you just to laugh about how insane it is that you're directing a play about a vampire. Just laugh at the absurdity of it, and that's what's gonna make it work. And pulled it off.
It worked
better than I ever imagined it could.
It was better than I thought.
I enjoyed every second of it. I went to both shows.
Right.
I went to both shows.
Well, let's talk about both shows, and then we're going to come back to what you said about awkward pauses. So there were 2 shows, even though it was only one group of kids. So in my theater department now, I have 2 Theater 1 classes and only 1 Theater 2 class, and that's the class that can do the plays. So when we went to cast it, we had to decide what to do because so many people were so good in audition, and there were only 2 leads, and then there were 6 people right below that had almost as many lines, and then the little fun extras that just kind of pop in and out, which are fun roles to have too. Mm-hmm. So I wanted people to tell me what they wanted to play, because I don't want to ever give somebody a lead with 300 lines if they don't want to learn that many lines or whatever. So we just came up with the idea that each person in the classroom would have 2 roles. So you could be a lead on one of the performance nights, and then on the other night you would still be in the play, but in a much smaller role. Mm-hmm. Or you could have 2 medium-sized roles or however. And it actually worked out that the kids almost all got either one or both of the roles they really wanted, which was cool. So David and I got to see both nights, which is, even though it's the same group of kids, 2 completely different castings. Which is amazing. It's
so fun to see the
differences in the approach. And they were both...
Because then you're laughing both times like you've never seen it before.
But for different reasons.
Yeah,
and that's what's so cool. But the awkward pause thing we have to come back to. It was not like there were really that many. But it was just that my actors don't want that to happen on stage. Like, of course, no actor does. And that's the true lesson for them, because I had to go back at intermission and calm some pretty massive nerves, breakdowns, people so mad at themselves. And I don't
because they miss lines.
Yeah, I don't pressure people in rehearsal to make them think I'm going to be mad at them, that they ruined the scene. I don't ever, ever, ever say that.
And the truth is they never ruined the scene.
Well, what I always say is, you don't know what's going to happen on stage. And it's easy to freeze, it's easy to forget your line, and your job is to tell the story. Figure out something to do next. So at the very beginning of the play last night, there was a scene where the 2 leads talk, silence. And they just both kept looking at each other, and they both kept looking at each other. And we always have a prompter. Always. We always have somebody back there to say it, because that's the most uncomfortable feeling in the world. And I'm pretty sure the prompter said a few things before they heard the prompter, because I think they both panicked so much that they didn't know what to do. And then finally, and it might have been, if we timed it, maybe 10 seconds, you think? It was about a 10-second. It seemed longer than that to you?
I think it was longer than that.
Well, however long it was, I'm sure it seemed 8 times longer than that to them. Yeah. But they finally picked it up. And it was so funny, because at the beginning of the play, we have all the monsters coming out talking, and people are laughing and enjoying it. And then the leads come out and they're talking, and we're like, oh, look, the play's cute, it's going so well. And then silence. I mean, the entire house was like, and they're just watching it like, oh, come on, say something. Somebody say something. Somebody please say something. Somebody say something. Anybody say anything. And then they finally just kind of picked it up and kept rolling with it. And that happened to different people at different times. And so when I went back at intermission the first night, one of the 2 different leads each night, obviously, but one of my leads was so upset at himself. And he said something about he had a long pause or whatever. I said, honey, you were not the only one. And they don't get to see the play, so they don't know that other people also had those little, we call them hiccups. You can have a few hiccups, but you just have to let that roll, because trying to have rehearsal time at all in a school that doesn't have a dedicated theater space is so difficult. And just getting on the stage and actually running through the whole show and finding the problems and fixing them, and and again, rehearsing with the cast who didn't really know their lines. I mean, you can do rehearsal, but you can't really prepare like you really want to, because so many people are standing up there not knowing what to say. But, I mean, to their credit, they worked their behinds off for the last 2 or 3 days before the play. As much as I saw they didn't know it, they found a way. And so they were trying to even learn each other's lines in case somebody dropped it and they could pick it up. And that did happen a few times. But honestly, if they had done the amount of work they had done the week before, then we would have had the week of to really fine-tune it. That's what I wanted. But you can't always have all that. But the reason that people still, after the show, had the reaction that I always envisioned is because when it hit so hard. Oh, so David, talk about some of the parts that you just really liked.
I laughed so much at so many different things both nights. I have friends in the show. some of them are very, very close friends. And watching some of the things they did, like seeing Maddie rap, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It was great. How was Andre reacting to that?
Oh, Andre was like just like the biggest smile on his face I've ever seen. Andre's a big friend in that group. And then Andrew, who's also a close friend with Maddie, he was cringing even more. I know he's never going to let her live that down.
All right, so just for our audience, Andre is David's
Right.
good friend, and he dates Madison, who is in the play. And
Yeah.
she played one of the two theater girls who were completely overdramatic the entire show. Like every time
My
they came
favorite
on
part.
stage, they were just so over the top, crazy, ridiculous, dramatic. And so at the end, the finale, the last scene, the two drama girls were presenting an act, which was a musical version of It, and they decided to do it as a rap. And you know, she had scarves coming out of the sink to look like blood, and like rolling all over the ground with red scarves, and just absolutely the most ridiculous, like over dramatic.
Blood, it's everywhere.
How did all of that come up from down there, or something like that? It was just,
I don't even know.
but so funny. And then the other actress working with her, tall, skinny girl who was supposed to be like the mom or dad figure, and just, I mean, rolling her hips all over the place, and just,
I know, like,
I mean, how did she get those moves?
I was like, oh my God,
It
look
was
at you
so
go. And
funny.
like, how brave she must have been to like
Yes.
do the Michael Jackson like
Yes.
crotch grab. It's like, what the heck is happening?
And I have to give credit to David, because at the end of that thing, which by the way, I'll just have to give myself a little credit too. I wrote down everything I could think of about the scene in It where the blood comes out of the drain and the girl sees it but her dad doesn't. And I made a little almost Dr. Seuss type rhyme so it could be done as a song or a rap. And one group did it more as a over dramatic, ridiculous song, and this group did it as a rap. But at the end of the rap, they lean against each other, and Eden and Madison go, wiki wiki word, and then we have the It clown run up and go, I'm the It clown, and then the audience just erupts with laughter, because the whole thing was funny, but the It clown running up, and I didn't have the It clown when I wrote it originally, and so as we read through together, David went, well, where's Pennywise? I'm like, we don't need that. He's like, Donna, if you're going to do It, you have to have the It clown. I'm like, all right. And so it was a costume party anyway, so I just had one of the kids on stage, and we actually already had the Pennywise costume in the prop room, so that all worked out, and it just truly brought the house down. The way they performed it both nights, because it was so silly and overdramatic, writhing all over the ground, and then the It clown popped in with just that one little ping, and just like right at the end, and people were erupting with laughter. It was so funny.
That was
That was
probably
so
my
good.
favorite part. I was looking forward to that.
Right.
That's the scene I was looking forward to both nights.
So
I knew it
you
was
said
coming.
Andrew, this is another friend in the friend group. Okay, Andre was the boyfriend. Andrew was just a friend. And he thought it was cringy.
But in the good way. Like, in the good way. Like,
Yeah.
it was cringy.
Right.
It's like
But
they're
it was
rapping.
supposed to be.
It's supposed to be,
Because
yeah.
it's drama girls being so over dramatic and thinking it's good.
And so oblivious to
Yeah.
how horrible it
really
is.
was. Absolutely.
And they think that they're actually going to win the contest. They're like, no one's going to beat ours.
And the audience on stage was the kids all dressed up in costumes. They're like doing the half clap at the end,
Which is exactly what would happen if that
But it was so funny because they had the reaction on stage because it was planned, and the actual audience was just like almost standing up like, yeah! So much. I mean, I laughed so hard the first night, I thought I was going to hyperventilate. And then one of the dads the second night was just laughing. I mean, I heard him, it would just like bellow through the whole gym, just laugh so hard. Oh, that was so good.
And Lauren and Aaron did a fantastic version themselves.
Yes, they did.
I don't understand. Lauren is a actress who has been in theater since the first year, so I knew her. I was very good friends with her, and she played this role of an overdramatic theater person. And I talked to her before she did it. She goes, "Oh, I don't really know." And I'm like, "If this is the role for me," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This role was built for you."
Right.
Like, what? I don't understand where Lauren
She
Lauren has no
absolutely wanted
confidence.
that from the beginning and auditioned for
Good.
it. And I mean,
It was
I
amazing.
never knew there were any doubts. So
She just doubts herself a lot.
So what did you think about when she and Aaron did it?
Well, everything Aaron does is magical.
Yes, it is.
Everything Aaron does is a work of art within
Truly.
itself. And I thought it was hilarious. And the thing is, I had not seen that one. I'd seen the rap. I knew the rap was coming. I had not seen that version, which was like them like singing with really high notes, like obnoxiously. And so I was surprised by it. I hadn't seen it before. So that was hilarious. I didn't know what to expect or what was coming.
Oh, it was so
Lauren always does a fantastic job, and Aaron always does a great job. I loved them, and it's really funny how those two characters who, you said it yourself, you don't even remember why you wrote them in.
I don't.
And
I'm going to have to ask Cameron, my co-author, because you always want something on stage that's going to catch the audience's attention and keep the talky scenes
the clowns.
from just being Yeah, you're right. The clowns. They were definitely the clowns. And I knew that, I don't remember, somehow we came up with the idea of having the Halloween costume dance because that's the culmination of the play, and every single thing that happened in the play comes together in that one scene. This is one of the plays, I think it's probably the play that I wrote that has the best, like, tie it all together at the end part. I mean, it all just
everything
absolutely
wraps
just
perfectly.
Every
Perfect
single
pacing.
thing. It was so good. But I just remember thinking when we came up with them, I don't remember how we did, but when we did, I'm like, well, they're going to have to do something on stage that people recognize. They have to be interesting. And so we just wrote everything they did as just silly and goofy and overdramatic, and they were silly and goofy and overdramatic. And every time they walked onto the stage, people were just like, okay, what are they going to do next?
Yeah.
It was just great. So tell me about another scene you like, because I have one in my head I wanted to talk about.
Okay. Another scene I really like. Well, to get more serious about what I actually liked, I think both nights, the main characters, Vlad and Alex, and I don't even remember if we've ever explained what the play was. It's called Vlad and Alex, You Can Count on Me. It's about a washed-up vampire who can't scare anymore, and he's lost his scare, and he doesn't know what to do. And I like to call the play How Vlad Got His Groove Back. That's what I like to call it. And it's Count Dracula, named Vlad, and he meets this kid named Alex who is a nerd at school, and he likes the girl, but the girl doesn't see him, and he gets bullied, and he has no confidence, and if he just spoke up, then everyone would love him, but he just doesn't have the confidence to do that. And they meet each other, and they realize they can help each other out. And because the implication I get is Alex, he plays video games, and he watches movies, he knows all about horror and everything like that, so he's going to help Vlad scare, and Vlad is a gentleman, he's a man, so he's going to help Alex learn to have some confidence in himself and get what he wants. And they developed this really, truly, like by the end, like this really emotional relationship that was like
Father-son?
A father-son, but also friendship relationship. Like, and Alex, his parents don't care about him or pay any attention to him, and he wants to get the girl, and
he doesn't have any guidance.
He's very relatable.
Yes.
And the actors who played both of those roles, both nights, fantastic.
They really were.
And the thing is, like, and I don't mean to like attack anybody, but Ethan, who played Alex, he didn't have many big roles last year. He was always in small roles. This was his first big role with lots of lines, so I didn't know what to expect.
Right. And he surprised a whole lot of people.
And it was incredible. Like, I got emotional at the end because of their performance, and along with Caleb, who played Vlad, who was in the same boat. He didn't really do much, and he had some struggles during rehearsal, and was and it was kind of like, oh man, I don't know about this, but like I always say, you knew he could do. You casted him for a reason, and during the whole time, I was like, this guy's a vampire.
He looks like
he
really looked.
The makeup was really great, and like the accent. It was so hilarious the way he talked, like just the small things. Instead of saying, let me get my Russian voice, Mother Russia. Instead of saying, this is a costume, he would go, this is not costume. He wouldn't say, this is not a costume. He'd go, this is not costume. Like, he was every little thing like that.
And he added a lot to the role.
And they really stepped up. And by the end, when you really see the culmination of their relationship, and they go for this hug, like the most genuine, unexpected awe came out of me. Like, the whole audience, yeah. But it's like, oh, that's so oh my god, that's so. I'm so happy for them. And then in the same time, Lane, who played Vlad, and Josh, that's his name. Josh played Alex. The following night, they had the same. They had I felt a very different dynamic in a way,
right?
But they had the same.
The ending had the same
result, the same outcome, but in a different way.
That's right. It's the same exact lines and the same exact story, but
just the way they do it was different. And I loved both of their performances, and both times it pulled real emotion out of me. And because the play is so perfectly pace that by the end, that truly is the, like, it builds up perfectly to that hug.
It really does.
And all it is a hug. They just say thank you for everything, and they hug. That's it.
That's it.
It's simple, and I love it.
It was very heartfelt.
Very heartfelt, and it was like a really, like, we've always prided ourselves on that we don't shy away from serious things. I mean, the second play we ever did was about suicide.
Well, it had a major...
big part of it was about suicide. So,
right.
And this one, it's very funny, and yes, it's very outlandish and absurd, but at the same time, it's about
a real relation, a human.
It's a real human. Yeah, like and Vlad is it's about a real vampire. It's a real vampire story. It's a real human story about these two people who help each other, who doubt themselves and don't see the value in themselves, but they meet somebody who pretty quickly sees the value in the other person, and they've never had that from anybody before, and that's something a lot of people can relate to. I'm sure. Yeah, I can't, because everyone loves me.
Well, of course, but
I'm
kidding.
Will say, I can definitely.
On kind of a sad note, that at the beginning of our play, the first lines Alex comes on stage to say is, "I can't believe they did it again. This esports tournament was really important to me. They said they would be there, and they didn't." Yeah,
he plays
again.
Esports.
But the point is, he's so angry and upset. That's why he's in the graveyard at midnight. Just to kind of yell out his feelings, because his parents had promised him they would come. They know how important it is to him, but they're just never around. And some of my cast members, I'm getting chills saying it, some of the kids in my cast after the show were just really upset because parents had said they would come and they didn't, and it just hurt my heart so much. But it just shows how relatable the story is. Because
at the same time, whenever they were sad, you had all these other theater people and you who were right there, like a Vlad to the Alex.
You're right. Like
to support
we
them.
are your family. We are your family.
Yeah, and
it was very meaningful.
So meaningful. Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Meaningful.
Very meaningful and incredible how that works and happens. And like you said, like chills. Like I didn't know that's what was happening. I knew people were upset, and then you told me right before we started. It's like, wow, how incredible that's what the play was about.
Yeah.
And I love all the characters in the play. I think everybody has so much character, the perfect amount. Like nobody's overused. That's why I say it's perfectly paced. Nobody's overused or underused. Everyone has a very distinct character about them, and you grow to like feel for all of them. You feel for all of the monsters who have, because not just Vlad's lost his scare. Every classic monster has lost their scare. Because, and it makes sense, because if Frankenstein walks up to you, like the classic movie monster, it's like, oh, cool costume, you know? And they've all lost their scare. And you really do feel for all of them, because slowly over time they reveal their struggles and the things that hurt them. And it's very relatable how Rosie is like, everyone just walks up to me moaning, like, I don't do that.
Rosie's a mummy.
Yeah, Rosie's a mummy, sorry. Yeah, she's a mummy, and she's like a queen of Egypt, is the implication.
Yeah, who was embalmed.
Yeah,
you know.
And they're like,
mummified,
and she's like, I don't do that. Yeah, that's really offensive. And like, I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to say that we ended racism, but I'm trying to say that, you know, I can see people relating, like, anybody can be like, yeah, it's all about stereotypes that they don't relate to, and also just people wanting to be accepted and find a place in the world when the world's changing, and that's very, very relatable and very happening right now. So I really do hope that a lot of the audience, which by the way, huge audience, both nights.
One of the nights was a LSU football game, and we still got a big audience. So that's a lot.
I didn't even think about that. That's impressive.
It is impressive.
On nights of LSU football games, nobody comes to Bitter and Sweet to get coffee. That's where I work, but people came to see the show.
Yes, they did.
You know, it's a big audience when people are sitting in the bleachers.
Yes,
because we have chairs.
Yeah, and we had people who came both nights, which was so cool. I loved that. So I want to say something. David was sitting next to me last night, as usual, and there's a line where the monsters say, "You're just spending too much time with their kind," because they look at the humans as like inferior, and they should be able to scare them. And David looks at me and goes, "Racism," and I'm like, "Yes, sir," because that's how you make those points, you know. It's just like Star Trek. They just kind of slide it
subtle.
in. Yeah,
you slide it in, and it makes that message. And that's why I'm saying I hope people took away from that the deeper meanings you really wrote into this play, because it's very funny, it's very entertaining, but it's also very well written and important, and it's just good. Just freaking good, dude.
So I don't remember if I said it last week, but I'll say it again anyway. When I was reading over the script to like pull out the prop and costume list, I'm like, this sounds like a movie that could be on Disney or Nick right before Halloween. And so it has me actually thinking, I wonder how you do that. So I've been kind of looking it up.
Converting it to a movie script.
Yeah, and then you have to find, I think Disney doesn't, you can't just throw it in the mail. Disney will just throw it in the garbage because I'm sure they get millions of submissions, but it's good. So I need to kind of figure out.
It has the themes that Disney likes to do, like they're teaching kids things, and they've been doing that more and more lately. I know.
I can just completely see every scene that we saw on stage as a movie scene, and just the whole movie playing and having that little touching moment at the end, and right after the touching moment, there's a little cute moment between the secretary and Vlad, who had been flirting.
Yeah, this movie fits. This play fits. I already called it a movie. I just said this movie. This play fits perfectly with that because you can see. I can imagine like the Nickelodeon and Disney audience reactions that they throw in there, like the fake laugh track and the whoa every time something bad happens, or the that would fit perfectly.
It just really would.
In fact, I want to get a hold of that footage and make a whole edit that has laugh tracks and all that kind of stuff.
We should definitely do that. But I have other news. So I'm going to come back around to this play. But last week we talked all about David and I signing our contract, and then Seth and I signing our contract to get our plays that we performed last year published by Big Dog Plays, who has already published the plays that I wrote when I wrote for the other school where I used to teach. Well, she emailed me this week and said, "Hey, I read that you and David had written another play, High School, Another Day, Another Test. Could you please send me that script?" So I don't know how she read that. Do we have that maybe on our website? Because I did.
It is on our website.
Yeah. So I said when I sent back our information sheets, I said David and I have a podcast together now, and I gave her the whole Stay Creative whatever, and we also have a website where we just explain who we are and what we've done together. That must be where she read it. So today I got an email from her. Oh, I did find the scripts. I didn't tell you that. So I emailed her the scripts last night, and today she got an email. I got an email from her saying, "Oh, thank you for sending this. I'll print it and read it." So we might have that one. And then, because I told her that I was busy working on a play, she said, "And be sure to email me the script for this one."
Yeah.
So she's like,
"Keep them coming.
Keep them coming." So I'm going to have to ask her, can I email? Can I submit it to you, but also try to make it into a movie script? Because I feel like it could be both, but I just don't know how that works with the whole copyright issue or the rights to it.
If you change it, does it become a different thing if it's a movie script? Yeah,
right.
I have no
like
idea.
High School Musical, they have the version that you can do live, so I'm not sure, but I honestly do feel like this play that we wrote could so be on TV and be one of those cute like Halloween staples like Hocus Pocus or any of those other ones. There are so many. I used to show The Mummy, which was on Nickelodeon, and it was just a fun little sweet movie about this boy who comes across this mummy in an abandoned house, and they become friends and help each other. It's the same basic story.
I 100% agree with you. It is such a simple story.
And it's just so heartwarming, and the way everything comes together and the lessons that you were talking about. We got to get on that, David. That needs to happen.
Wow. I 100% agree with you in every way that it would work like that.
It really was.
It's such a simple story. It's two
very
unlikely friends.
Yes, unlikely.
Unlikely friends.
Who have more in common than they could ever know.
More common than they know. Boom. Right there. Like that's something everybody can relate to. And I think that's why the audience loved it so much. And
also it was funny.
And it was
so
hilarious.
Funny.
Yeah.
Oh, and then come back to my scene, so we'll do that now.
Oh, please.
So there's a scene where Alex, who still is not real sure about this weird dude calling himself a vampire.
Yeah, calls him a cosplayer.
Right?
Really funny.
People loved that too. We got a big laugh there. But he invites Vlad to come to school to meet his friend, to scare his friend. But in reality, he just wants his friend to meet this old dude who thinks he's really a vampire. So that scene starts off with the girl Jessica that Alex is going to bring Vlad to meet, just on stage, just kind of hanging out, looking at her phone or whatever. And then Vlad walks in, covered in this ridiculous muumuu and hat, because that's all Alex could find to protect him from the sun. So visual humor, and it was cute. And they just have a few lines. Vlad tries to scare Jessica, and when she said, "Oh, you must be the vampire that Alex was talking about," you can see Vlad was hurt because, "Oh, you told her I was coming," and they still haven't established their trust. And then the drama girls walk in, and they're talking all about come to our Halloween dance, and then they take a picture with Vlad, and Vlad doesn't show up in the pictures, so that's how they realize that he actually is a vampire. And then our secretary, and this night it was played by Aaron. Both of my secretaries did a phenomenal job.
Katie Mack. I love Katie Mack.
But Aaron, just everything our actress Aaron does, it's just so funny. You can't even believe anybody could be that funny. So she walks in with these posters that she's hanging up for the blood drive for the school, and looks down her nose through her glasses at Vlad, who's there in a vampire costume, and who has offered to help her with the posters.
Because it's a blood drive.
It's a blood drive. And so they just have this whole little moment where Vlad's like, so you like blood? And the secretary, Erin, who was named Donna, interestingly, Donna was like, well, if it helps people. And she's doing her shoulders back and forth and doing the little flirty voice. And I mean, it was not a scene that was written to be humorous, but that part was so funny. And every single line in that particular scene last night was delivered exactly as I would have wanted if I could do it the best it could be done. Every single line, the timing, the expression. I mean, they went off the stage and I was like, yeah!
Yeah, you said that to me.
It was just so good. And I just, in my head, I saw every scene going that way. And of course you can't have it all, but I mean, I was just so happy. It just hit so perfectly, every single part of it. That was one that I really, really enjoyed last night.
I wish it was a movie so we could rewatch it.
Well, we did record it. We
recorded it. Yeah, I know, but
so we had two different.
I wish I wish it was another one tonight so I could go watch it again.
See, that's the thing people don't understand. I can show the filmed version of it all day long, but it's nothing like being in the room.
It's so exciting. I still love coming back and sitting in the front row with you and watching these plays, because you never know what's going to happen. No. That's the beauty of theater, because every night
the audience reacts with you. It's just like a concert when you go see movies, any live performance. People are getting more and more away from that, but it's a human need to be in a group and to share experiences. It's very important.
At this point of the podcast, I imagine what this is really going to be good for is people who were in the play listening to it and realizing they were amazing. So next I want to talk about Alfred Browning. So part of the plot this is sort of the B plot that becomes the main plot to the play, is that there's this director named Alfred Browning.
Who is an alumnus
of the high school that Alex goes to. And the reason they're having their big costume contest, because he directs horror movies. So he's going to come back, and there's a contest. Whoever can come up with the best idea for a new horror film will star in Alfred Browning's next movie.
Right.
So he shows up, and it ties perfectly together, because then the monsters show up, and they end up... Alfred's like, oh my God, you're amazing. I want you.
Let's go back up just a second. The reason the monsters show up at the dance is because through the entire play, they've been trying to figure out how they can make their big comeback.
Yeah.
How they can scare a whole lot of people. And so Vlad learns about this Halloween costume dance and pitches it to the group, and they decide this is a perfect opportunity. And before it actually comes...
He becomes good friends with Alex.
Vlad and Alex.
He's like,
so he doesn't want to ruin Alex's date.
Because he gets the date with Anna based on what Vlad helped him do. Right. And then so he's trying to talk him. He's like, maybe you should go to a picnic. And Alex's like, what the heck? No. And Vlad's like, oh no, what am I going to do?
So lots of, not sure what to do.
I know.
Cross purposes, whatever. So Alfred Browning is at the dance while different kids, like we have It the Musical... We have somebody doing a...
Mario.
Yeah, Mario zombie.
Zombie Princess Peach and bites Mario.
Right. And then there was the one where the popular jock is trying to be vampire, and that's when the monsters actually make their entrance, which is what you were talking about. So when the classic monsters come in, they are there to scare everybody, but Vlad announces that they're actually there because they want to participate in the contest. And the director, Alfred Browning, who you're talking about, realizes that they would be perfect, make the iconic monsters come back to film. But we want to talk about...
Wraps up the play perfectly. Beautiful. Like, that's pure art. But
it was. But Alfred Browning, our actors who played that, one of them was the lead. Lane played Vlad on Saturday, but got to play Alfred on Friday. So that was cool to see the two parts by the same person.
Very good. I enjoyed it.
Both phenomenal. But Michael had just a little bit more flavor.
So on Saturday, I'd seen Lane be Alfred Browning, so that's what I expected. I was like, that's Alfred Browning. I had not seen Michael do that during rehearsal, because I didn't go to every rehearsal. And so...
Please talk about that performance.
Saturday night, and out walks Michael, who's this little skinny Asian guy, and who has not had that many big roles, and I don't really know him personally, but he walks out. And he's in this huge fur coat.
Which, by the way, David wore 2 years before as the wolf.
Yes, as a wolf. Yeah, so that was... And he has a Gucci belt, which is hilarious. And he's like this like black like suit shirt and just walking with his like his fingers held up like he's fancy. And everyone's just seeing him. Everyone like is like, woo! Yeah, and hilarious. And then he's like starts talking and he's like... Every little thing that he did blew me away. He was this total drama queen director.
Yes.
Like, I can't even put words to it. He's the kind of guy who wears a Gucci belt. And then he does the, I can't even, that thing, yeah. So this guy's trying to walk up to him and he stops him, but and before, like when Lane did it, like I'm not trying to dog on Lane. Lane's a very good actor.
Lane did a phenomenal job.
But when Lane just stops the guy.
Yeah.
But then Michael does it and he goes, oh, stop. That is my dog. And
the audience
oh my God. That might have been the loudest laugh of the night. It was so funny. Just completely stole the show. He's in one scene and completely stole the show.
Actually, he was in two because he also played, we had a birthday party scene, which was another fun scene. But,
I mean, Alfred Browning was in one scene.
Yeah, okay, Alfred Browning, that character. But the actor also got to come in at the end of the birthday party where the monsters were in the park, and then the mother thought they were the entertainment for the party. So that was just hilarious. Kids running around being rough with these poor monsters, just trying to, observe human behavior. But so Michael comes out after all of that crazy party business, and he's this terrible looking like old beat up cape and a mask over his face to be the vampire.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. But he made that big too. Just he had maybe one line or two or three lines in that part and just was so cute. Just loved it.
Great.
So.
What a great... This play had a lot of people stepping up.
Yes.
And that's the thing I saw. It was a lot of people, especially like I said earlier, Ethan and Caleb, like just stepping up completely to a whole other level.
Oh yes.
So for some of them, like being professional, from my understanding, Ethan like knew all of his lines like before anybody else. Like he was fully 100% there, and
he was on it.
And everybody stepping up and doing these crazy things, these outlandish things. I have been friends with Maddie for many years. I have never seen her do anything like that rap.
Well, I have to say, when she and Eden... Well, what happened is we had a photographer come last Friday to take pictures, and so we kind of had some dead time, and Eden took it upon herself to say, okay, let's use this time. Let's work on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So she and Maddie went to a different area in the hall, and I think it was probably Eden, and they just kind of worked it out. Eden brings with her the energy of I'm just going to push it as far as I can push it, and every time, and let's just tell Eden's story. So when I had my very first theater class, which David was in when he was a senior, Eden was a sophomore, and she was just this quiet, like kind of sat in the back row, never said anything, just never seemed uninterested, but just very quiet. Was not somebody to like jump up and volunteer for anything we were doing. But she auditioned. She wasn't sure what she wanted to do. We did the Brothers Grimm Spectaculathon, which is a big compilation of a bunch of fairy tales.
Yeah, what is she doing that?
She was the elf. I mean the elf. Dwarf.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I remember
So when she auditioned for it, she didn't really know what to audition for, but people had kind of signed up to audition for bunches of things, so she just went for one that nobody else really wanted. And when she started acting for us, it was like, who are you? It just, all of a sudden, this personality just bounced off. And there was a scene where she's talking to Sleeping Beauty and she says, and I like ladies. And there's this little growl. And I mean, we just died. And people who knew her choir teacher, who was also our other theater teacher, was like, who is that? Where did that come from? And so since then, every play we did, Eden just took on whatever role was available. She never was picky about what role she got. And just
made the most of everything she was in.
Just walked on stage and just did it huge. And so the first night in the play, Eden got to be our Wolfman, which was so much fun because she just added so many extra things to it.
Every little thing she does, she takes it and like, what can I do to push the envelope?
Yes.
And I was at the rehearsal when she was like, I think I want to do an accent, but I don't know, like that. And you were like, I remember what you said to her was like, we're trying things, and also like, I trust you, and if you want to do it, then you go for it. Because she had earned that trust at that point to do that thing. And she did it. I was very impressed that she stuck with it, because I didn't know if she was going to stick with it or not. And I liked it. It made the character very distinct and different, and gave it a lot of personality, the accent she was doing. And it just, every little role that she's in, she adds as many little things as possible to make it her own, and it's so impressive every time.
It is. So the Saturday night show, we've already talked earlier about how Eden and Maddie did the rap to the
Dramatic
It
Theater
musical.
Girls.
So good, just so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And it's, I really like Eden a lot, and everything she does. And I remember, I don't mean to call her out at all, but I remember at one rehearsal, she came up to you afterwards, and she was so worried.
She was very
that
stressed.
She wasn't doing good enough, and you had to tell her, like, you are one of the best actors that I've ever worked with. Like, I see what you're doing good. Just breathe and keep doing what you're doing. And I wish, and that's an incredible thing you can do as a director, and that's what I've talked about, is what you can pull out of these actors, and telling her that. If you hadn't told her that, it could have been a completely different thing, because she could have been so worried and stressed, but you told her just the truth, and that's what all the actors need to hear, is just keep doing what you're doing, and just do it. And that's what Eden is, the epitome of just do it.
Yeah.
And every time she blows it away.
She does.
I love watching her act. Can't wait to see what she does next semester.
Right. So another thing that Eden brought to the table for this play, she didn't want anybody to have bad feelings. We kind of had some rehearsals where things were turning negative, which was a big problem last year that we had to work through as a group. But she brought donuts to class one day. It's like, this is for no bad vibes, you know. And she also...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, wasn't that cool? She did it for Friday. But she said... And we've always said this, but she's the one that kind of reminded us for this play. If you don't feel stupid up there on stage, you're just not doing it right. So in other words, push yourself way out there.
I haven't heard that in a long time,
but
I
it's
remember.
So true.
Yeah.
And I will also say that one of the biggest compliments I feel, because I try to ask people, what did you like? And they're like, oh, it was so good. I'm like, well, what are some of the specific things you like? Because I want feedback. I want to know what things do we need to improve, but what really stood out. And at least 5 different people said, like, everybody was so into it. They were really into what they were doing. And, you know, you can go watch a play where 2 or 3 people are just kind of walking through the motions. And, yeah, I'm going to say my line here and just kind of look down and wish I could just be off this stupid stage. But we were all,
yeah.
I mean,
everyone. I didn't get any. And there were, even when there were points where the energy was kind of low,
you could tell they were trying so hard.
Every single person wanted to be there. They cared about their role. And I think that's actually a big testament to your writing and directing. Because the way you wrote the play was every single role was there for a reason. Like, it wasn't, there were no filler roles. There weren't any roles that weren't worth it, or unimportant, and weren't worth it. Weren't people, I mean, I'm sure the way you wrote it, I was actually thinking about this earlier, is the way that you wrote it is, I'm sure everybody had trouble picking what roles they wanted to go for. Because every single role had a moment to be funny and to bring something to the table, and had plenty of time to steal the show if they wanted to, and be there and be useful. And I think that, and I love all the other things we've written, but I could definitely see a criticism of some of the things we've written being like, well, that role wasn't really important or whatever. But this one, I don't know who you could take out of this.
Right.
You couldn't. Every single person there, and part of your directing and what you've really like hammered in is go for it. Take an idea and run to the hills with it. And every single role got a chance to do that. Even the small ones, like the mom at the birthday party. Just a small role. Both nights, both people who did it had a very, very different thing. One of them was a real country mom. Oh, y'all are so adorable. Thank you for coming. And then one of them was like this, oh my God, my daughter's gonna love it. It's like
preppy mom.
Preppy mom, yeah, like the overbearing preppy mom of like, she just wants to be cool like the kids. Like, it's like both times, and it just stole the show, but stole the scene both times. Every single role, even the little birthday girls, like the birthday girls who had like 2 lines, had a chance to steal the show.
It was
perfect.
So funny. It was so good. Well, I have another little fun story. So my theater classes, I told all the students if they were interested in being an understudy or maybe coming to our rehearsals and filling in, because we needed some extras for a scene we had in a restaurant. And then, of course, the last scene with the costume dance. We just needed more people to make it look like there was actually a dance happening. So one of my students showed up yesterday early, And he was just not really sure what to do with himself because a lot of the actors went backstage and he didn't know if he could. I said, well, you can come on back here. And I was kind of walking back and forth, checking on people and talking to people. And I looked at him, I said, you want to be in the play? He's like, can I? I'm like, sure, you can be an extra at the end. And so we found him a costume. And this is another thing I got to pop in. So if you have a costume party on stage and you are a theater director, you can pull out costumes from all of your past plays.
That.
So I don't think I had anybody from the first play I ever directed at Denham Springs. That's when I still was doing the drama club. But that play was called Nightmare High School. And it was so much fun. And the way it was written is there was supposed to be this huge pile of mashed potatoes that just kept getting bigger and bigger, and it would like attack people like the Blob. And we just couldn't figure out how to do that on stage. We just absolutely just didn't understand how that could be a thing. So we changed it because I found online Snicker bars costumes. And so there was a small one and a big one. So we had different people like playing the role and they got bigger. So I got to have my Snickers. I need to actually post that on Facebook because I have so many kids that were in that play on my Facebook, Facebook friends. So that was on stage. And then last year, one of my students I've talked about before on the podcast, Dean, who created the whole Ziplopo store of the lizard god and everything, he got to play the Ziplopo priest and the pelican story, which we called a patriotic pelican, on stage. And so they wore these green robes because, of course, Ziplopo is green. So we had a Ziplopo robe on stage. Our Alex character wore a patriotic pelican shirt.
Lots of little references. I love that.
I mean, we get to do our own Easter eggs now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're creating our own Marvel universe.
I know.
It's just so amazing. I mean, just to see so many people come back, because I think about the first 2 rows just full of people who were part of the program and are just coming back to support it now. That is just so meaningful. And what else is so cool is that last year when we did Dinky Springs and then we did Pelican, your class, you and the other people who were coming back were like, wow, y'all have curtains now. Wow, well, look what y'all do with the set. And so last night, actually Friday night, one of my actors who played Pelican opposite Seth, on the opposite cast, his name is Nevaeh, he was like, y'all doing a lot more than we did. Everybody's up there in a costume. And I'm like, well, the program has to grow. And I have a student that I taught as a sophomore who actually moved to another school, but came back and saw the show and came and talked to me Saturday. And he's like, I should have stayed here. I mean, well, look what y'all have done in 2 years. And so watching the program grow, of course, you start getting money in the account. You can upgrade the equipment. You can, we built the Periac toy, which are these 3-sided set pieces in the back that turn, and every face of the triangle makes a new backdrop. That was built last year, so we'll have them every play we write now can have 3 different backdrops, whereas before it was hard to do more than one. It's just such a fulfilling thing, but I never got back to my boy who got to be on stage. So his name is Nate, and he got to be in the party scene wearing the Ziplopo robe, so I got off track on my Easter eggs. But after the show, he was like, oh, I want to be in another play. I have to take theater next year. Do you have a theater 3 so I can take it when I'm a senior? I want to write the play. Can I write the play when I'm a senior? He was just so excited. I mean, he got to be in one scene, but he just so enjoyed the backstage experience with the actors and just the energy that comes with this type of production. And I've been around and heard about many different theater programs that are all stress. That's all they are, stress. You want to do a performance, but everybody's stressed because there are just such harsh demands. They're stressed because if you don't know every line perfectly, you get screamed at. I mean, I never would ever do that to my students. I mean, even when I was a young director and the play was going as horribly as it was, I was upset, but I didn't want to be the screeching director. It's just not me. Just like I've said before, I'm not going to ever be backstage running around trying to fix problems, because in my opinion, it is a learning experience. And what they take from it the most, the things I even remember the most, something went wrong, but we fixed it. And I mean, God, what kind of life lesson is that, you know?
I know.
It's just like you don't always get everything like you want it to be, but you are in the moment now, and now you have to go from there.
You can't always get what you want.
Right.
But if you try sometimes, you might find what you need. And that's theater. Yes. And you're 100% right. And that's something that I never have lost track of, is how important theater is for these kids. And I've talked about it countless times on this show about how, like, before you, there was, like, well, you can play football or you're a loser. And that was kind of it. There wasn't this thing for you to do where you learn these kind of life lessons. And that's a good point. That's not just about theater. That's about life. Is that you fall down, you stumble, but you laugh it off and you make the best of it, and it works.
And they also have to work together in that situation.
You have to work together. Yeah. What better? You know what's better? You know what Springboard? Hey, Springboard. So, getting a group of 4 to highlight things in a book, it's not good. That's not going to get people to work together.
We need a little bit of context here. So Springboard is a curriculum that provides lessons for all of the core subjects, English, Math, Science, Social Studies. And it's like a canned lesson, and we're supposed to teach that at our school. And some people follow it very specifically, and other people, like me. Of course, I'm not teaching English right now. So
it's okay.
Yeah. But even when I did teach English, I incorporated Springboard as much as I had to. And then I tried to teach my lessons with creativity and working together and, producing something from your interest that relates to the context of what we're teaching, which is what makes people learn, in my humble opinion.
Right, yeah, it is. And what's cool is you're not, even when you're teaching theater, you're not being a director, you're still being a teacher. You're teaching these kids these sort of things, the same lessons that people in your English class get to learn, just in very different ways.
Right.
I've always said I learned way more in your class than I learned, but I have never used the Pythagorean theorem, but I've definitely had to deal with tough situations that I was able to handle because of the experiences I had in theater, where I became a much better person. I had to write a dedication for Camp Dickey Springs, because that's the one that's getting published that we've talked about, and the dedication was to every single person who was involved in Denham Springs Theater during my senior year. Without you, I'd be a completely different person, something like that. And it's very true, and that applies to every single person. Whenever we're getting close to the end, and I think this is a great way to wrap it up. Whenever we did Grimm Brothers Spectacular-thon, the first ever play that we did
as a theater
department
that had classes during the school.
My first ever play I was in. I got off stage, and a reporter who's been a very good friend to us, and we really appreciate everything he does, David Gray, works for the Livingston Parish newspaper. And he came up to me, and it felt like the Super Bowl. I mean, everyone's like going crazy, and he comes up to me, and he has a mic, and he's like, "Hey, can I ask you something?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can ask me some questions, yeah." And I'm like standing there like in my Hansel uniform, like, it's the greatest experience. I love it so much. And he's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh man, it's so cool." And what I said was, and it just came straight from the heart, was we started this year with nothing except the experiences and talents of Miss Van Os and Miss Furneaux, or Miss Chasey.
But most people call her Furneaux.
Our theater tech director. We started this year with nothing but the talents of these two women. Nothing. And some stuff that was in a room that Donna had from years ago. And we just did that.
Yeah.
And then we did it again, and again, and again, and again, and we're going to do it again. And then everything builds off of these things that we've done. And like Nevaeh was saying, like, wow, you are doing all this now. Because now we have 3 different sets. We didn't have 3 different sets my year, but now you do. And it's great to see that. And now you're able to pull something off where you have all these people on stage and these big moments, and it just keeps building and growing. And every year there's more and more people sitting in that front row of alumni. Eventually we're going to have to stop reserving seats. I'm sorry. Eventually, you're going to have to stop reserving seats because there's going to be too many. You're going to take up everyone. All like the parents have to send the bleachers.
Well, actually, the JAD Fashion Show, we have it's like SAD, which is, Students Against Destructive Decisions. It used to be drunk driving, but our version is Jackets Against Drunk Driving or Destructive Decisions. And they have put on a show for many, many, many years. I don't know how many, 20, I think-ish. But they actually have the seats set up like we do, and they reserve almost to the end because so many people come. So that might be what we end up doing. We reserve the seats for our people, And it's not that we don't want other people to come, but it's just that if they're coming, they're special, and it's their special spot. You know?
And it's so great to see all those people and to hear them laughing on the other side, like all these like Dean and Seth and Tristan, they're all like going crazy about, because at that point they have more friends on stage than I do because they were there a year before. And that's going to keep happening. It's like every year you get closer to the front, you get the people who like have their friends. And that's kind of sad to think that like in like 2 years, I won't know anybody in it.
Yeah, because
like,
next year because
at that point of like I know a couple people who were
just from watching the program, but I mean this year is the last year people you were in class with are on stage.
Like there's like Lauren and Jason
and Eden.
That's it.
Those are the only ones.
They were sophomores when I was a senior, and now they're seniors and they're leaving. So there's everyone at that point. After that, I would not have shared the stage with anyone.
No, I'm wrong. Mallory and Gabby were both.
Oh, that's right. They
just skipped.
And Katie Mack.
And Katie Mack. So those three were in as a sophomore, but not as a junior. But now again as a senior. But the other three we said have been with me all 3 years, and that's very, very special. I will also say this: I have many students throughout my the different years that'll have me twice a day, and like David did when he was a senior, he had me as his English teacher and his theater teacher. Well, to be at our school, which is a sophomore, junior, senior level, we don't have our freshmen with us because we just don't have room at our school for that many students. But I've had quite a few who were able to be with me all 3 years. But I have a student this year who has had 4 classes with me. So last year I taught a student named Casey, and she was in my English 3 class and my theater class. And now this year she's in my law studies class and my theater class. So she might be the only student I've ever taught at that school who had me for 4 different classes. So it's just, I love watching that. When I taught at Lee High School, I had a theater program that had a drama 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I actually had a group one year when they got to their senior drama class that I had taught at least maybe half, maybe 15 of them that were with me all 4 years of their high school career. And that, you just don't get more meaningful than that. I mean, to go through the high school experience together, but then that was a theater class, so you did all these bonding things with all this, and all the way through, and I'm still close to almost all of them, like Facebook friends, and we keep up with each other, and it's just the human connection, and like I said, the shared experience. It's just so meaningful, and I love it. I'm just absolutely passionate about it. And as hard as last week was, and David seeing me being down about the rehearsal process, it wasn't nearly as down as I have been, but it was just stressful. It was just like, man, how can I deal with the stress without making it so to where I don't feel like I can deal with it? But I got through it, found a way to push it back up, and
were these last 2 nights rejuvenating?
Oh, more than you can have any idea. Well, you sat next to me,
Yeah, I know.
Laugh, the belly laugh of God. It just it just comes out.
I love that. I love hearing you laugh during these plays, and all of the alumni that are up at the front, and it's really funny. I didn't write this one. But whenever I have written them before, like during Dinky Springs, sitting next to my friends and like bumping, I'm like, that's funny, right? I wrote it. It's such a great moment, and I love getting to see that come on stage, and you got to do it this time with one of your best plays, I would have to say. I think so. And I can't wait to see it published and done other places and see how they do it, and see the how they do their Vlads and their Alexes and. How they do?
Heck, maybe make it. See it made into a movie. That might be my route with this one. I'd be curious to see if we could do that.
I like that a lot. Too. That's a great idea. I think it fits better than anything you've written. Probably like fits that bill.
I think
perfectly. Or sitcom. Movie spins out into a sitcom.
Well, actually, somebody did say, and it was somebody's younger sibling. We have big talks in the dressing room before we go on stage, and we share our, what people said and how we feel. And somebody said it was her brother's like, I want a part 2, and I looked at Cameron, who's my co-author, and we're like, well, maybe next year.
Last night we were at IHOP because I don't know if you know this, but the idea of theater kids going to IHOP after a show is a total meme on the internet. Do you not know that?
I didn't know that.
Apparently it's very common, and the joke is like, it's just a meme as in like, IHOP waitress enjoying her night, looks behind her, and the 100 theater kids are like, yeah, and they're all dressed in these ridiculous costumes that come in, and it's like, oh my god, that's just the joke.
Well, I mean, we've done it since I did the theater club and drama club.
Apparently it's very popular for people to do that.
I did not know that.
Well, because IHOP's open 24 hours, and so that's a meme, but we were at IHOP, and I'm sitting there with Aaron and Casey, and Cameron had came by like once or twice. So we started talking about like, what are we gonna do? Like they're like, I didn't bring it up, but they were like, so I think Cora and Candace can have their own thing, right? So it's huge ideas coming out, like going crazy, and I start jumping in, and it's like, wow, I can't wait to see that. Like Cora and Candace can have their own freaking show, their whole thing. I want to see Cora and Candace travel the world, going to theater productions and trying to be actresses. And Alfred Brownie can show back up, and you got to see Donna again. Donna, don't forget a visitor's pass.
I'm gonna buy you a Coca-Cola.
I'm about to buy you a Coca-Cola. That's so good. The Coca-Cola. I'll buy you a Coca-Cola. That's so funny because that's something totally someone like her would do. Like a completely like a secretary who like, oh, you're crying? I'll get you a Coke. That'll make it better.
But not a Coke. A
Coca-Cola. Yeah. I'll get you a pop.
Yeah.
But it was a great show. I loved seeing it. Fantastic.
We had a good time.
We had a good time, and really, I hope that everyone who was in the show listens to this podcast, right. And that's really who I'm like, this is who this for. And for you to realize, because that's so amazing for them to listen to this and be like, wow, that's so cool. So I hope that if you were an actor in the show Friday night or Saturday night and you're listening, I hope you know that all of you did a fantastic job. Even if we didn't specifically talk about you all did a fantastic job. I loved every single scene, every single line, every single character. There's nothing I would take out of it. Not a single thing. And I hope you don't have to edit anything down like we had to do high school, because there's
it ran exactly 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
And it didn't feel like it at all.
It really
felt like
did.
5 minutes.
You told me that when we read it. You're like, people are going to be amazed how fast this goes by. Because it moves.
And even like watching like last night, I'm like, and Friday, it just goes by so quickly. And I'm like, I want more. It's the perfect of leaving you wanting more. It doesn't go so long. It's like, okay, ready for this to be over. It wraps up perfectly. And it stays funny till the very end with new surprises till the very end. And the last line is a Donna line. So even the last line's making people laugh. Like it
was so
perfect.
Good. It is so good.
Very impressive.
Love it. Well, I guess we got to wrap it up, David. I had a thought I wanted to come back to. You know how I do that all the time.
Yeah.
You were talking, and I'm like, I got to say something about it, but I can't remember. If I do, I'll just tell you after we finish.
Yeah.
We should finish, so I guess I can do the ending this time.
Yes, please do.
All right. So I will say thank you so much for listening. This has been Donna.
And David.
Stay creative.